Okay, okay. Turn off the light and close the door. Okay, Tamara, get ready for a lot of pictures. Close the door. And we start on one. Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Palestine at the UN. Probably some of you, I don't want to say all of you, but some of you may have heard that the Palestinians are in New York trying to get their country to be recognized by the rest of the world. I can tell you one thing. The rest of the world has already recognized the country of Palestine. But there's one country that is very much standing in the way of Palestine to become a country that is recognized by the United Nations. Even though individual countries, over 120 of them, have already recognized Palestine. The General Assembly, the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen, it's a body that was started back in 1945 after World War II. It started, and the reason for the United Nations is to stop all wars and to have peace in the world. So it is supposed to be the body that is watching over everything. But does it? Now, of course, those of you who have been following the program probably know a lot about the Palestinians and their problem and their dilemma than the rest of the country. Most people in the United States don't know much about Palestine. Yeah, they hear the word and they know what it is, but they don't know anything about it. President Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, now let me give you a little quick lesson in what is the Palestinian Authority is. Back in 1993, there was an agreement between the Palestinians and Israel to start a 5-year negotiations. It is known as the Oslo Peace Agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis, who decided to recognize each other. So the Palestinians recognized Israel and the right of Israel to live in Palestine. And Israel was supposed to recognize the Palestinians. So there was an authority that was given 5 years to live. That was back in 1993. And in 1998, a Palestinian state was supposed to actually be born. Well, the Palestinian Authority, that was a body that Israel actually allowed the Palestinian leadership to go into the West Bank and act as a government. Well, it did. And since 1993 until probably about 6 months or 7 months ago, when negotiations stopped between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Now, Palestine has been under the Israeli military occupation for 63 years. The Palestinians are not asking for all of Palestine. Now, we do have a map of Palestine that we normally show here on the program, that we are going to show you now. The one on the left is the one before 1947, when the United Nations actually decided to partition Palestine between Arabs and Jews. At that time, Palestine, of course, after World War I, it was nothing but dark areas because it was nothing but Arabs living there. After World War I, when the British and the French defeated the Ottoman Empire, they allowed the Jews of Europe actually to start migrating into Palestine, which was way before the so-called Holocaust. But in the 1940s, that's when the Jews have succeeded into bringing thousands of people into Palestine. So they very much settled areas that you are looking at in like those white areas. Those were Jewish areas. This is at the time when the United Nations actually decided to partition that land between Arabs and Jews. The second map from left is the partition plan. That's what the United Nations said. White areas, Jewish or Israel, and Palestine will have the dark areas. Well, Israel loved the idea. I mean, look how much areas they had, and that is and also the population they had. They had like less than 1/3 of the population there in Palestine in 1947, but yet they were given over 52%. Then in 1967, third picture from left, in 1967, Israel took over more land. Now, after 1967, and what the Palestinians are asking the world to recognize their country on what is left of that, which is the third map from left. That's the 1967 borders. If you heard about what the 1967 borders, many people talked about it. And our own president mentioned 1967, and he got scolded bad by the Zionists and by Israel and by our own Congress, those who cater to Israel and the Jewish lobby in the United States. They scolded the president for mentioning the 1967 borders because Israel does not want to give that to the Palestinians. The last picture on the right, that's about 11 years old, that picture. That was in 1999, 12 years old. That's when the West Bank, which is that little shape, that's a very funny heart-looking shape, if you might. And now Israel actually divided and took more and more, as you see more areas, more white areas in there. And the Palestinians' areas have been cut off from each other into different segments. So they segmented and fragmented what is known as the West Bank. Now, let's bring up something else. The occupation. You know, you hear of people saying the Israeli occupation of Palestine. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's talk about the Palestinians and the Israelis, like as far as who really can beat up on the other, as far as that who can defeat the other. Now, you don't see many of these pictures that we are going to show you in the American media, but it's a fact. And when we say it's a fact, we show pictures. We're not like President Obama. When he says something that's a fact, that means it's a fact. No. When Obama says it's a fact, that means he's lying. But let's show what does this occupation means. Let's show some of these pictures to show you the Israeli military, what it can do. This is what Israel has done in Gaza just a couple of years ago. That's the military that Israel has. It does things like this. Okay? It is bombing. They have the Air Force to bomb the hell out of Palestinian areas. The Palestinians don't even have not even one plane. This is what Israeli Air Force does to Palestine, to the Palestinians. This is what they do in Palestinian neighborhoods. Now, who needs to be protected from who? Is it the Israelis who need to be protected from the Palestinians? Or is it these children that are dying, these Palestinian children that are dying who actually needs the protection of the world and the protection of the United Nations and the protection of Obama? Since, remember what he said, that he's going to Libya to protect the civilians because it's the right thing to do? Well, Mr. Obama, the right thing to do is to stop Israeli aggression against the Palestinians. This is a Palestinian building that was bombed by Israel. Another place that is bombed by Israel. This is what Israel can do: bomb and kill Palestinian children. That's the difference between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, these are Jewish settlers in Palestine. They find a piece of land and they take it as their own. They bring these people, God knows from where. They are armed, as you see. That is a Palestinian land, those olive trees, that guy. And these are the settlers. They go in armed. The Palestinians don't have arms. That is a Palestinian land, olive groves that you are looking at there. But they go in and they take it. Now, this guy is a Jew. He is an illegal settler in Palestine, taking a land that these people have lived on, that the Palestinians have lived on for thousands of years. Now, look at who teaches what. This is Israeli children writing messages on these missiles, on these tank shells, before they are fired to kill people, to kill the Arabs, to kill the Lebanese, to kill Palestinians. This is how these people raise their children. The Israelis raise their children to kill Palestinians. As you can, it's a family thing. It's a family gathering of how to shoot. Now, who has the guns? The Israelis. Who can kill? The Israelis. Who's teaching their children on guns and how to use them? So when they grow up, and by the way, when they grow up, when they're like 15, 16, 17, 18, they go in the army, and that's when they start killing. So these people, these children are looking forward to start using those guns to kill Palestinian children. Now, who needs more protection from the other? Who has the guns? Who has the tanks? Who has the bombs? Who has the Air Force? It's not the Palestinians. It's the Israelis. Now, the Palestinians they said, look, we decided to take the peace road. The roadmap to peace. They decided to do that back in 1993. And they have been negotiating with Israel all that time. So, few months back, they decided, well, you know what? We still, negotiations is not bringing us anything. So they did not decide to go back and start their military affairs, whatever they can, against Israel. And they can't do much. They cannot do much. The Palestinians cannot do much militarily. But that was an option that they could have taken, even though they could not do much. But they can do something. But they decided, no, we believe in peace. We believe in the right of people to live in peace. We don't believe in death. So the Palestinians, and instead of, when they found out normally, and no one would have even bothered to even, think anything of them if they would have went to the violence way. Like have an intifada and have violence. Everybody would have excused them and said, you know what, they tried negotiations with Israel. It did not work. So if they went back to violence, I guess there's nothing else they can do. But the Palestinians did not. They did not revert back to violence. They continued with the peace initiatives. And they said, you know something? We're not getting anywhere with Israel. Let's get the United States. So they tried to beg the United States, would you please talk to Israel, because you are the one that's supplying them with guns. You are the one supplying them with money. Apparently, you must have a political pressure over them. So Obama tried last year, bless his heart, he tried, but he got scolded bad. He was snatched, dragged by his ear with Netanyahu, or by Netanyahu, and by the Israel lobby, and by our own Congress who cater and think they are members of the Israeli Knesset. They put pressure on the White House. They put pressure on Obama to actually kneel down to Israel, and he did. He did. Finally, he tried. Remember when he said something about the settlement? Remember what Netanyahu did? He came over here and showed him who rules this country. Remember that? Remember when a few months ago, he said the 1967 borders? You know what happened to him. Netanyahu came over, and that's at the same time when our president, a day before this picture was taken, our president dared to mention the 1967 borders, and the Israel lobby and the Jewish lobby and the Zionists in this country, they got on the president like crazy. They brought Netanyahu to our people's chambers, Congress, and they gave him standing ovations over 30 times to show our president, you do not do this to Israel. Israel gets what Israel wants. Don't you understand? And even his own party, the Democrats, even they put pressure on him because he mentioned the 1967 borders. Now, we're going to show you a very short clip. Again, we showed you many pictures of what an occupation looks like and who actually is killing who and who needs to be protected. And keep in mind, Israel has the fourth strongest army in the world. They have the 10th largest army in the world. So the 10th largest in the world and the fourth strongest army again in the world against the Palestinians. And all you hear from our politicians and all you hear from our president is what? The security of Israel, as if the security of Israel is hampered by anything the Palestinians or even all the Arabs around them can do. All the Arabs around Israel, they're not a match, remember, for Israel. Remember, today's wars are not fought by the sword. Now, if it was fought by the sword, you might say, yeah, they're going to beat them up. You have about 280, 300 million Arabs. But numbers don't count anymore. Numbers do not count anymore. What counts is what kind of weapons you have, period. What kind of weapons you have. And Israel has the weapons of mass destruction that the Arabs will never, well, I shouldn't say never, they should have. They should have weapons to face off Israel, but they don't. They do not have that. Let's play the first one. We're going to show you what an occupation looks like and what it means.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
The United States government is supporting it, and the American Congress and taxpayer are paying for it.
Without massive U.S. support, none of this can go on.
No other issue is treated in such a biased manner.
because this is an issue of American foreign policy.
That is probably the reason why this stuff is simply censored out of the press.
All right. Now what we are going to show you is a little clip from President Obama's speech yesterday at the United Nations. Now, his speech compared to reality is nothing. I mean, it has nothing to do with reality. Now, pay close attention to what we have done with that speech, the pictures that we have put. That way you will know, because I don't want to be interrupting and explaining to you what you are watching, but pay attention. Now you have pretty good information on who really needs protection from who. It's not the Israelis, it's the Palestinians who need protection. Let's play that reality versus Obama.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, fellow delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for me to be here today. This has been a difficult decade. But today we stand at a crossroads of history with the chance to move decisively in the direction of peace. To do so, we must return to the wisdom of those who created this institution. The United Nations founding charter calls upon us to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security. And Article 1 of this General Assembly's Universal Declaration of Human Rights reminds us that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. Those bedrock beliefs in the responsibility of states and the rights of men and women must be our guide. And in that effort, we have reason to hope. We have banned those who abuse human rights from traveling to our country. And we've sanctioned those who trample on human rights abroad. And we will always serve as a voice for those who've been silenced. I know, particularly this week, that for many in this hall, there's one issue that stands as a test for these principles and a test for American foreign policy. And that is the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Let us be honest with ourselves. Israel is surrounded by neighbors that have waged repeated wars against it. Israel's citizens have been killed by rockets fired at their houses and suicide bombs on their buses. Israel's children come of age knowing that throughout the region, other children are taught to hate them. Israel, a small country of less than 8 million people, look out at a world where leaders of much larger nations threaten to wipe it off the map. The Jewish people carry the burden of centuries of exile and persecution and fresh memories of knowing that 6 million people were killed simply because of who they are. Those are facts. They cannot be denied.
Those are facts that cannot be denied. 6 million people died in the Holocaust. Now, what does the Palestinians have to do with the 6 million? Did they have anything to do with it? No. So is it only fresh memory? What about fresh memory of those people in Gaza that Israel killed? Their blood hasn't even dried up yet. What about that, Mr. President? Mr. President, you want to sanction those who are oppressing others? Then don't then you need to actually eject the Israeli ambassador from Washington if that's what you want to do. You want to sanction Israel, because those are the people, that's the government. Everything you said in that speech, Mr. President, was completely the opposite. It is not the Israeli citizens who are dying, it's the Palestinians who are dying. It is not Israel that needs, a nation of 8 million needs protection from the people around it. No. The people around it needs protection from it. Israel committed many massacres. What freedom are you talking about? What freedom are you talking about? Your speech, Mr. President, was not, even though it was in the United Nations, it was supposed to be to those people attending the United Nations, which is very much the whole world. But your speech was directed at the Jewish voters for 2012, Mr. President. That's who your speech was directed to. Your speech was directed because of the seat you lost in New York. That's because it was Democratic for the last 70 years, and all of a sudden, the Jews of New York scared the hell out of you, so you said, I better say something. You're not going to regain their trust. You are not. You lost the trust of the world, Mr. President. You have smeared, George Bush have smeared the reputation of the United States when he went and attacked and killed 1 million Iraqis that had nothing to do with 9/11, did not have anything to do with anything to harm the United States. The reputation of the United States was damaged heavily. But now, you have killed it. You have completely put a bullet in its head, Mr. President, because you have shamed this country so much by standing in the way of the oppressed, the Palestinians, the longest occupation in the world. These people have been oppressed longer than any other people in the world, Mr. President. That's what you did. That's what you did, and the world is watching. You know what? Let me tell you, Mr. President, the world wants a Palestinian state, and the world will get a Palestinian state. You should have shown, and you should have built the reputation of this country by voting yes to a Palestinian state. But you caved in, Mr. President. You caved in to the Israelis. You caved in to the Jewish lobby in Washington. You caved in to 2012, Mr. President. You have sold your conscience to the highest bidder, Mr. President. You have shamed us as citizens of this country because you knew you were the only one. The United States was the only one on that Security Council that was going to vote to veto. The Palestinians has the vote in the Security Council, and you knew it. You did not want to veto that resolution, but you're going to have to, because the Palestinians will not and would not bend under your pressure and under your Zionist pressure to withdraw their application to the United Nations to be counted as people in this world. That's all they want. That's all they want. They recognized Israel. They did. And the world recognized them, by the way. Over 120 countries have recognized Palestine. Yes, the General Assembly vote, they will get it, and you know they will get it. But you caved in, Mr. President. You caved in. That's not what you said just a year ago. And I'm going to remind you, Mr. President, of what you said a year ago.
We believe the borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps, so that secure and recognized borders are established for both states. The Palestinian people must have the right to govern themselves and reach their full potential in a sovereign and contiguous state.
Okay? Well, that was just last May with the 1967 borders that we told you about. So in last May, let's play that again. Let's play that again. Listen.
We believe the borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps, so that secure and recognized borders are established for both states. The Palestinian people must have the right to govern themselves and reach their full potential in a sovereign and contiguous state.
Okay? That was in May. And that was when Netanyahu came over here, dragged him from his ear and said, sit down. Let me tell you, son. I don't know, maybe he called him boy? Because that was the insult, and we covered that. We covered that here. That was the insult for the whole country. What happened? Our media went against him. Our own Congress went against him when they received Netanyahu the next day in the people's house, and they gave him standing ovations. Okay? Now Obama changed all his stories. Now he changed everything he said. Even though he said, we believe that the Palestinians should have their own independent states based on the 1967 borders. He said that. As soon as he said that, Netanyahu and everybody was, wow. Stop it, Mr. President. The hell are you doing? Who you think you are? Did you really think that you're the President of the United States now? That's exactly what they told him. And then the Democrats got in and said, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We have an election coming. Israel rules the elections in this country, Mr. President, and no. Shame on you. That's what our own Congress did. With resolutions in Congress supporting Israel against our own president. When the President of the United States says we, he means us, the country. He speaks for us. He said, we believe that the Palestinians should have an independent state. We believe they should govern themselves. We does not mean Obama's family. Does not mean him and his wife and his 2 daughters. No. It means you and I and 320 million Americans, because he speaks for all of us. Unless you're not an American. Then he does not. Or unless you don't believe in democracy. But you see how democracy can be manipulated? If this guy does not have to be elected, he will do the right thing. Don't think being a dictator is really all bad. It's not. Democracy puts limits like that when governments can be bought. But if this guy knows he's not going anywhere, at least he has 10 years, do you think he's going to give in to pressure? No, he's not. He's going to do what we believe in. But this is the American democracy. We sell people, we kill people, to hell with people around the world as long as our politicians are elected. That's the right thing to do. Those are American values, right? Now let's see what this poor president said last year at the United Nations.
But this month I am pleased that we have pursued direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians in Washington, Sharm el-Sheikh, and Jerusalem. The hard realities of demography will take hold. More blood will be shed. This holy land will remain a symbol of our differences instead of our common humanity. I refuse to accept that future. And we all have a choice to make. Each of us must choose the path of peace. Of course, that responsibility begins with the parties themselves, who must answer the call of history.
Notice the Israelis left.
Earlier this month at the White House, I was struck by the words of both the Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "I came here today to find a historic compromise that will enable both people to live in peace, security, and dignity." Those of us who are friends of Israel must understand that true security for the Jewish state requires an independent Palestine, one that allows the Palestinian people to live with dignity and opportunity. Those of us who are friends of Israel must understand that true security for the Jewish state requires an independent Palestine, one that allows the Palestinian people to live with dignity and opportunity.
Okay, stop it there for a second.
And
then
those of us who are friends...
And go back from the beginning of that last video. Now, if you noticed, he said that the security of Israel depends on an independent Palestine. Okay? That was last year at the same United Nations. The same United Nations that he is standing in front of the Palestinians and not allowing them to have their own state. A year ago, he was saying the Palestinians should be independent. And remember his speech when he said a Palestinian state living side by Israel by September? Where is September? Where is September? You see what he's doing in September? Play it.
Those of us who are friends of Israel must understand that true security for the Jewish state requires an independent Palestine, one that allows the Palestinian people to live with dignity and opportunity. And those of us who are friends of the Palestinians must understand that the rights of the Palestinian people will be won only through peaceful means, including genuine reconciliation with a secure Israel.
Okay. You know, they always say secure Israel. From what? From who? You want to secure Israel from who? From these poor Palestinians from who? Anyway, tell you what, we're going to go to the phones. I believe we have Ramsey on line one. Ramsey, welcome to the program. Ramsey, are you on? No? Okay. Do we have someone? No. Okay. All right. Apparently, he hung up. Okay. Well, let me know when he is on, unless the phone is playing tricks on us. Anyway, this is what is happening. The Palestinians have decided not to unilaterally solve this problem, like Israel is saying they're unilaterally doing this. No, they're not. They went from actually negotiating with one party, which is Israel, and supposedly the United States was there to make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to, into negotiating with the whole world. Into negotiating with the whole world. They brought their plight to the whole world, and the whole world said, yes, you deserve a country. Yes, you deserve a state. Yes, you suffered so much. It's amazing, ladies and gentlemen, that the media in this country only covered it very little and in such a way where to show that they should not, they showed the Israelis, those people who want peace, it can only take place through negotiations. Come sit down with us on the negotiating table. That's what Netanyahu is telling. That's what the media is telling you. No. The Palestinians should not be going to the United Nations. They should be sitting down. That's what Netanyahu is saying. Come, Mr. Abbas, and sit down. They're not telling you that they have been negotiating for over 20 years. They're not telling you that while they are negotiating, Israel is devouring their land. Israel is bringing thousands, about 1 million illegal settlers and settling them on Palestinians' land. Negotiate what, Mr. Netanyahu? Does your media tell you that? No, they're not. The settlers, we showed you their pictures. They are roaming the country in Palestine, in the West Bank. They are taking over people's land. They are burning, as we speak, before I came over here, settlers with guns, were roaming the streets of many villages in Palestine. The Israeli army was roaming many villages in Palestine, arresting Palestinians because they are out there in the streets saying, we want to be recognized as people. Does this reality show? You've seen what our president said? Anything he said resembles reality? No. He talks about Israel's security. That's what he talks about. They did not tell you that there's no way on earth that the Palestinians can even do anything to Israel. They can't. They cannot. Tell you what, let's go to, I believe, Freedom on line 1. Freedom, welcome to the program.
Okay, Dr. Tillawi, you are going to have to explain something to me. Ronald Reagan, when he was president back in the 80s, he thought that there should be a two-state solution, Israel and Palestinian living next door to one another in peace.
Right.
George Bush Sr. also thought that it should be that way too. Okay, Bill Clinton came into office. He said the same thing, that there should be a two-state solution. George Bush Jr. just left office, and he said the same thing, there should be a two-state solution. But when Barack Obama says it, Rick Perry the other day came out on Fox News and whatnot, Sean Hannity and all that junk, Rush Limbaugh, saying that Barack Obama have a policy of appeasement, just like Chamberlain had back in World War II with Adolf Hitler. So wait, how can they call what Barack Obama is doing appeasement and not Ronald Reagan, George Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, and George Bush Jr.? What's going on here? Thanks.
Thank you. Well, no, the difference between what Barack Obama actually has said and done is, number one, he was the first president. By the way, Ronald Reagan was the first president to recognize the PLO as the representative of the Palestinian people. That was way back in the 80s, late 80s, or mid 80s, I think 88 or something. That's what Ronald Reagan did. Now remember, the PLO was in our media as a terrorist organization, and all of a sudden, once the politics side of it changed, then all of a sudden that, yeah, we are okay, with the PLO, and then we started talking to the PLO, but before they were terrorists, and then the media spun it differently. Now, yes, what Freedom said is true. All of them called for the two-state solutions, and they're not shunning Obama for saying two-state solution. They're saying two-state solutions themselves. I mean, the Israelis, they're not hiding, and they're not attacking the two-state solutions, but they are attacking Obama because Obama was trying to actually do something on the ground. He tried. And when he mentioned the 1967, you've seen what they did to him. Because that's actually when Bush Sr. brought all these people to the Madrid Peace Conference. At that time, the Prime Minister of Israel was Ishaq Shamir. And Ishaq Shamir, and yes, you're right, President Bush, he tried to stop building of these settlements, and he said they are obstacles to peace. And he said that he's going to withhold the $10 billion loan guarantees to Israel. What the answer by the Israeli Prime Minister at that time? When a reporter asked him, he said, I will have his job, because they told him, they said, hey, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Shamir, what do you think of George Bush, the American president, saying that he's going to withhold $10 billion or you stop building settlements? He said, I will have his job, and he did. Because George Bush, a man with 98% approval rating right after the first Gulf War, what happened to him? Defeated badly. Why? Because that's what the Zionists want. Because he stood up and he said, I am not going to allow this $10 billion loan guarantees. Now, why Obama? Because it's the politics of things now. Because now it's the opportunity for Israel and its cronies. It is the opportunity for those people like Perry and everybody else to jump in and attack him, even though they know what the real stuff is, but this is politics. They are using the Palestinian plight, the Palestinian oppression, they are using it to gain points on each other. That's all, while people are dying. I'll tell you what, I have lost all respect for Mr. Obama. I have lost all respect for him. He said something last year. When he says something, we say it as a country, and we could not go along with it. He said the Palestinians should have their own independent states. That was last year, the United Nations. He said by September of this year, they should have. Did you see what he said this year? Computer says no. That's what he said. That's what he said. He said no. Why? How can you go from yes to no in 1 year? Well, look what happened to him in this whole year. When you have your own party bring Netanyahu and give him standing ovations, you know you lost. You know the American principles of dignity, the American principles of bravery, the American principles of freedom, and doing the right thing is no longer there. You cannot use those principles anymore. You've got to use the principles of numbers. Who's going to be in 2012? Now, why does the American politics have to kill Palestinians? Have to kill more and more Palestinians? Because they want to play politics? Because they want to cater to Israel? We cannot, as a country, decide on something and keep our word? Let's go to Ramsey in Canada. No? What happened? Okay. You know, I don't know what happens to Ramsey. He keeps hanging up or something. I know we are keeping him on. I'll tell you what, Ramsey, if you call, I promise, he's calling probably, I know he's calling like international call, and from Canada. I promise I'll take you as soon as you call back. So I'm not even going to take the next caller. I'll take him, but I'll wait for Ramsey to call. Now what? Ramsey? On one? Yes? Okay. All right, Ramsey, welcome to the program.
This is not Ramsey, but this is Winston, Dr. Tillawi.
All right, well, Winston,
and
welcome to the program.
I would tell you, you put the case so beautifully tonight that you should be the one making the speech before the United Nations, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Call the United Nations and tell them to have me on the podium, and I will make that speech, and I'll guarantee you. You know what? Forget about the United Nations. Give me 1 hour on Fox. 1 hour on Fox Network. Just 1 hour. Because as you are in this area, you are educated with world politics. You are educated in our own national politics from me right here. Because they don't tell you. So, do we have Ramsey now? People? Okay. You're just going to have to tell me. Okay. Ramsey, are you on? He's not. Ramsey? Okay, I don't know where Yahya is, but they're telling me, yes, we have him, but we don't. So let's figure that out. And if you have him back there, just throw him out here, and I will take him. Because I appreciate him. He's an old friend of the program, actually. Ramsey have been with us for many, many years, watching the program from Canada. And he calls in almost every show. So we appreciate him, and we give him preferences. So if you call from overseas, we will give you preferences. Anyway, this is the deal. And I will wait, just let me know. As soon as you get Ramsey, let me know. This is the deal, ladies and gentlemen. The rest of the country, they don't get Current Issues TV. They get Sean Hannity. They get all these. But you know what? If they want Sarah Palin in, the one who actually had the Israeli flag in her office in Alaska, in the governor's office, all these people, it's like, are you people catering for Israel? Are you serving Israel? All of them go to the wall. Look what happened to Obama when he went Last time he went to and visited the wall, the Wailing Wall. All of them have to go and actually visit the Wailing Wall. Put that picture on, please, to show people when Obama, every politician has to go and visit the Wailing Wall because he has to be stamped on his behind. Okay? What's going on with the pictures, people? Okay. All right, let's take Ramsey and then we'll do the pictures. All right. Ramsey, welcome to the program.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, sir. I just want to say that you're doing a great show today, and sir, it shows you how Barack Obama's a complete hypocrite, you know, and what really bothered me is when he mentioned the Holocaust. See, there's no question that his speech was written by the Jewish lobby.
Well, not by the Jewish lobby. It was written by Netanyahu.
Yeah, exactly. And sir, so another question I want to ask you: why has the Palestinian Authority decided to do this move in the UN now?
Why not?
No. I mean, like, I agree with them completely, but the thing is, like, how come they didn't do it earlier?
Oh, how come they didn't? Well, because they wanted to give these so-called negotiations. By the way, we have actually suggested, and I was one who actually suggested to Chairman Arafat to please go and to the United Nations way back in 1998 when Palestine was supposed to be born according to the Oslo Peace Agreement. And many people did. And by the way, he did mention it. He started, testing the waters. And Netanyahu was prime minister at that time. And Netanyahu said, if you do announce the establishment of the state of Palestine, I will go back and take the whole thing. And we were saying, let them do it. Let them take it. But I guess at that time, Palestinians they were there for 5 years. And I guess they loved the idea that they are governing themselves, even though they weren't governing themselves. They were still under occupation. But now you had like a Palestinian government, etc. They were building their state, so they did not do anything. But I wish if they would have done it a long time ago to show the people what kind of people these are in Israel and controlling even the United States. Because as I've said so many times, the Palestinians are occupied militarily by Israel, but we in the United States are occupied politically by Israel. Thank you. You have something else, Ramsey?
Well, it's another thing people have to keep in mind. Barack Obama was talking about, the freedom in Libya and Egypt and Yemen. At the same time,
what about the Palestinians? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. That's an excellent point. The Palestinians have been under oppression for 63 years. The Palestinians have been under oppression for 63 years. Being killed, being maimed, their land stolen. But, like we always, say, it's politics, but it should not be, because, you don't know when politics stops and when it ends. But this is the reality, not the reality. And when he tells you, when Obama says, that's a fact, no, you need to know, if he says that, then he's lying. If he says that's a fact, he's lying. Because he's lying. He's caving in to pressure. Anyway, so the picture that I wanted you to show is Obama at the Wailing Wall, and so please go ahead and show that, just to tell you that our politicians have to go to Israel to be blessed at the wall. But you know what? It doesn't matter where he goes. I will always be there to tell you the truth about what is he doing and what is going on. Hopefully we will set him straight. But I'll tell you what, again, I probably will not be, even though when it was him and McCain, now you know how bad I fought for him. It will not be this time around. If it's going to be Sarah Palin, let it be, because you know what? Unless they start operating in the open, and they are now, but let's bring Sarah Palin in to show you how deep Israel is controlling our politicians. Put Sarah Palin on, because that way we know she is the enemy. We know she is the enemy. Don't put somebody that people are going to think, oh, he's friend. And he turns out a friend that cannot do anything. He just wanted to be seated in that position. But you know what? Bring Sarah Palin, because the people, unless it is broken, you're not going to do anything to fix it. Bring Sarah Palin so you will see how bad politics is, how bad our political system is in this country, and how bad we need to change it. This one-party system with two faces needs to go. And it's not the third party, the Tea Party. No, we need a people's party. But before we do that, we need to get out of there in the streets, just like the people in the Arab world did. If Facebook got them out on Twitter, then let's Facebook and Twitter our way out there in the streets and say, the people demand a new political system, a new regime. Down with this regime. Anyway, that's all we have. So good night. We'll see you next week. Ustream.